Question number 5, Iain Gray.
To ask the Scottish Government what additional support from the Council Tax Reduction Scheme it will provide from April 2017 for families in the Musselburgh Job Centre area who have migrated to universal credit.
Minister Jeane Freeman.
Thank you very much. Anyone who currently receives council tax reduction support will continue to be eligible if they are in receipt of universal credit. In addition, our proposed reforms to council tax will make local taxation fairer and continue to protect households on low incomes, including those in receipt of universal credit.
Iain Gray.
I welcome the answer from the Minister, but Spice's information is rather different, that the Council Tax Reduction Scheme increases due in April will not apply to those families who have migrated to universal credit. I'd be grateful if the Minister would investigate and perhaps tell us how this can be corrected.
Minister.
I'm grateful to the member for drawing that to my attention. That is certainly not my understanding. Indeed, my understanding is that the Council Tax Reduction Scheme will benefit up to 77,000 households by an average of £173 a year by increasing child allowance within that scheme by 25%. So I most definitely will take Mr Gray's point on board, investigate the apparent disparity in figures and report back to you.
Ben Macpherson.
Thank you. Does the Minister agree with me that universal credit is not yet fit for purpose and should be halted until it's in a state that can actually support people and not cause further financial hardship?
Minister.
Well, yes, I do. It is extremely disappointing, Presiding Officer, that a scheme announced in 2010 is not yet rolled out, and indeed the latest completion date is 2022. I can only imagine if the Scottish Government ever took so long to do something, the criticisms we might hear from some of my colleagues on my left, at least geographically. We have expressed our concerns over the rollout of universal credit for a considerable time, and we did call on the DWP to halt the rollout in Scotland until they are in a position to bring in the Scottish flexibilities around universal credit, which of course are part of the benefits that will be devolved to us, those flexibilities. Unfortunately, we've not been successful in that, but we do believe that the opportunity we will have when that opportunity comes around to give people a choice on how their universal credit is paid will help people in a considerable manner.
Rachael Hamilton.
To ask the Scottish Government whether there will be an appropriate level of staff to assist with those expected to receive help with the migration.
Minister.
Well, thank you, Presiding Officer. It seems to me that question is best directed by one of the member's Westminster colleagues to the DWP, because it will, of course, be the DWP who are currently responsible for the rollout of universal credit. They concocted the scheme and the proposition and the benefit itself. And I can only but imagine, although of course we don't get this information from DWP, exactly what it might be that is holding them up on this. But clearly there are issues around staffing and other IT matters, and I'd look forward to hearing the response the member gets from the DWP when her Westminster colleagues put that point.
To ask the Scottish Government what action it will take to tackle claimants' abuse of the welfare powers that are being devolved.
Minister Jeane Freeman.
Thank you. The Scottish Government intends that our social security system will operate on the basis that people have a right to support and care where and when it's needed, without being stigmatised or treated as potential abusers of the system. Nonetheless, of course, the Scottish Government has a zero-tolerance attitude to intentional fraud, and we are currently seeking views on how we can best protect against fraud as part of the consultation on social security.
Jeremy Balfour.
Can I thank the Minister for her answer? Last week, ONS labour market statistics showed that the claimant count over the last year was down over 8,000 in England, 2,000 in Wales and almost 6,000 in Northern Ireland, but in Scotland was up by 2,000. Can the Minister explain to the Chamber why Scotland is the only UK nation to have a rise in the claimant count?
I would say to the member that at least part of the rise in the claimant count is indeed in some of the work that we are effectively doing in encouraging individuals to claim the benefits that they are entitled to. And with respect to the idea that those who seek help and support from our social security system, or indeed the UK government's welfare system, are abusers of that system, I would just like to lay on record the fact that in terms of the DWP's most recent statistics for 2014-15, the level of fraud in the benefit system is 0.8%. That is 80 pence in every £100 that are spent, totalling about £1.3 billion. And I would like us to just pause and compare that, indeed, to the £16 billion that cost the country in terms of tax fraud.
Fulton MacGregor.
The Minister may have seen the heartbreaking appeal from a mother in my constituency at the weekend who has had her benefits sanctioned for 4 months, leaving her unable to buy food or clothes or nappies for her child. While the actions of the Lanarkshire Baby Bank and Coatbridge Citizens Advice Bureau in supporting this family should be applauded, does the Minister agree with me that no family should be put in this situation?
Minister.
Thank you. I have seen the article in the Evening Times, and I agree that while it is heartening to see the generosity with which the people of North Lanarkshire and Coatbridge responded, with over 200 of them coming forward within an hour of the video appearing online to offer help and support to this mother and her 2-year-old, they were offering help and support to an individual who'd been placed in a dire predicament, which the DWP had forced her into. The tragedy here, unfortunately, is that this is by no means an isolated incident. The Scottish Government has made its position on sanctions abundantly clear. We are told, and they are justified by the UK Government, that sanctions incentivise work. On the contrary, there is no evidence of that at all, but the evidence that does exist is that sanctions actually increase poverty and the anguish that people suffer. So that is why we supported the House of Commons Work and Pensions Committee call last year for a full and independent review of the system, and it's why we continue to believe that the current sanctions regime should be suspended. It is indeed a discredited system.
Mark Griffin.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I wonder if the Minister would agree with me that rather than treating people with suspicion who desperately need support from the state, that actually we should be working to boost the claimant count, including the 100,000 people who qualify for tax credits and who haven't applied, which represents a loss of over £400 million to families who desperately need it and the Scottish economy.
Minister.
Thank you. I absolutely do agree with the member, and indeed part of our work in social security and in the consultation is to look at what we need to do across Scotland to increase the information that individuals have on the benefits that they are entitled to and encourage and support them to take up those benefits, whether or not they are delivered and administered by the UK Government or very shortly by the Scottish Government. So I know that I will have the member's support in working out exactly how we do that and making sure that people across Scotland receive the entitlements that they are due.
Question 9 has been withdrawn. Question 10, Elaine Smith.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government whether it will ring-fence funding for supported accommodation and local housing allowance when this is devolved.
Minister Jeane Freeman.
After much uncertainty on the 15th of September, the UK Government announced that they will ensure that the supported accommodation sector will continue to be funded at current levels. A new funding model will be developed in England, and funding will be devolved to the Scottish Parliament to allow us to make our own provision for supported accommodation from 2019. We are still waiting on further information and details from the UK Government, but we will make our own plans known when we've had the opportunity to consider the full information and consulted with the relevant stakeholders.
Elaine Smith.
Thanks, Presiding Officer, and can I thank the Minister for that response. But I do hope that she can appreciate that there is concern that money could be reduced further or allocated elsewhere, and I trust that the Minister, in taking this forward, will keep stakeholders informed, both individuals and the industry, as it goes forward.
Minister.
Indeed I will, and as I've said, once we've received the details from the UK Government, we'll consider our plans and consult with relevant stakeholders before we bring those forward.
Question number 13, Graeme Day.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government how proposals in its new Social Security Bill could benefit carers.
Sir Jeane Freeman.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Unpaid carers play a vital role in caring for their family, friends and neighbours, and we have already committed to increasing carers' allowance so that it is paid at the same level as job seekers' allowance. That is an increase of almost 18%, and eligible carers will each get around £600 more per year. We're currently undertaking a wide-ranging consultation on social security that finishes this coming weekend, and I myself am pleased to say that I was at one such event this morning with carers where I'm listening to them and others in receipt of benefits that we will be responsible for to take their views on how we can best create a social security system that is fit for Scotland.
Graeme Day.
I thank the Minister for that answer and for her attendance at the recent Carers Cross-Party Group meeting which covered this very subject. That CPG discussion raised a number of important issues in relation to the bill from a carers perspective. Can I ask the Minister if, as we move forward, she will ensure carers are involved as far as they can be in shaping the new social security system in order that we emerge from that process with something that better supports them and those they care for than the present UK arrangements?
Minister.
Thank you. I thank the member for that additional question because it allows me the opportunity to put on record in the Chamber that our approach to the consultation, which is one of listening and talking to those with direct experience of the benefits that we will take responsibility for, as well as those who advise and support them, the many organisations involved and indeed those who deliver payments across Scotland, is an approach that we will continue when the consultation ends this weekend. And so we are absolutely committed to designing with those individuals the future system for social security in Scotland, working through the interrelationships between the 15% that we will be responsible for and the remaining 85% that will stay with the UK Government and DWP, and looking to advice, support and indeed advocacy services that will enable individuals both to take up the benefits that they're entitled to, but to experience a system that is genuinely living the values of dignity, fairness and respect.
Thank you. I think the Minister makes a point about difficult decisions. What discussions is he having with local authorities about the type of difficult decisions that they face? I know that in Fife, the community alarm system was introduced, the payment for community alarm was introduced some time ago when his own party was in power as a budget decision at that time. Councils are facing massive cuts and we're seeing that in services. What discussions is he having about the impact of the cuts?
Minister.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I know that colleagues are speaking to local government on a regular basis. Finance Secretary Derek Mackay is having regular meetings with COSLA at this moment in time about the forthcoming budget. Of course, we are still not completely sure of what is going to happen in that regard because we are waiting still on the Chancellor's autumn statement, which is more likely to be a winter statement now rather than an autumn one.